Hello, everybody. Welcome to Take the Black, the only uh, podcast show on the internet where we talk about things that matter, like dragons and spaceships and sickness and plagues and voices that go out from under you, even though you don't really want them to. My name is Dan Selcke, and I sound like I gargled a whole pack of jacks and just spit them back up. But really, I was in Florida over the weekend with Daniel Roman and Richard Durante and lots of folk at Fansided for a company gathering. And if you're wondering why my voice is shot, it's because we spent all weekend, volunteering at Special Olympics, but also hanging out, staying up quite a bit too late, drinking a lot, and doing karaoke. So my voice did not survive the trip, but otherwise I had a great time. And Daniel, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. My voice is not that much more intact, but a little more intact. So yeah, I'm good. Nothing is the same, but everything is the same. And we're excited to see you guys. Thanks for tuning in, Julie and Nicole and Christian. Great to see you.
Dana first.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some stuff. We might talk quietly.
Yeah,
yes, just kudos Dana on the number one slot.
Bear with me, people. If I have to ASMR this for one episode, it might just have to be like that for a minute. But yeah, we're not going to let voices that are kind of in and out stand in the way of us giving you the news that you need to know. Starting with what I think will become a pretty regular feature as we inch closer to the grand return to Westeros is an update on. We should have a whole section for it. Like, what did George R.R. Martin say this week? Because he's out there and he's saying stuff. So he was
the word of the Martin,
the word of Martin. Down spake from the hilltops. He was out on again. He's promoting House of the Dragon. He's coming out of his little castle, and it's just we always hope he'll say something he shouldn't, and we can have a real update. But he was talking about House of the Dragon, the upcoming prequel show to Game of Thrones, based on his book Fire and Blood, and talking about how he's very happy with it. You know, they're had to make a lot of choices because they can't do 3 different versions of the narrative like it is in the book. They got to choose one to give the official version, but he thinks they made the right choice. And in some cases, they even improved on the source material, such as he compared it to how much he liked Sybil Kelly playing Shay in Game of Thrones. He was noted fan of that because he kind of wrote that character as pretty not much of anything, but on the show she kind of popped and fizzed and crackled, had more depth.
She had a lot more personality.
Yeah. She was definitely more likable. And he said in a similar vein, I cannot do the voice today. There's no way. He said, quote, in a similar vein, I am vastly impressed by the show's version of King Viserys, played by Paddy Considine, who gives the character a tragic majesty that my book Viserys never quite achieved. So, Daniel, any comment on that? Good sign or bad sign?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great sign. It's a great sign, obviously, I think. There were a couple of characters that the show improved on that George commented on throughout the show. Shay was one. Osha was another one that he said she was a huge leap forward from, she was kind of a minor side character in the book and in TV shows. It not saying that doesn't still happen. You can't still have minor characters, but when you're hiring good actors to do parts, there's more incentive to flesh out characters if the actor's bringing them to life. We kind of saw that with Theon. Even Theon got a lot more screen time in the series, partially because they liked the actor so much because he did such a great job. So I'm excited by this because Viserys, he is a character who I was kind of surprised at how much we saw him in the trailers, and seeing that we're going to get more stuff like when the characters are like when Rhaenyra and Alicent are younger. We've seen a few scenes that are from that era. which makes me think we'll get to really see a lot more of Viserys, like throughout his reign. Like, I think he's gonna, because moderate spoiler, Viserys dies. That's kind of what kicks off the whole Dance of the Dragons. So yeah, I think that is a good sign. If they're fleshing out characters in a similar way as Game of Thrones did, I think that's exciting. What do you think? You good sign, bad sign, sign of the times?
I was just kind of being sarcastic, like like he says the character's better, good sign or bad sign? Obviously good sign. Yeah, but
yeah, yeah, of course.
I hope the new Viserys is, because I kind of like the Viserys in the book is a bit of a like a bumble boob and just doesn't know what's going on and is not really tapped in.
Yeah.
You know what's something a little weird, and some great comments here that I will get to. Julie, I appreciate that you think I sound sexy. I appreciate that. I can't change it. And as Nicole says,
that was what you were going for.
That's what's happened. That's what I'm going to use to my advantage, maybe at the bar. I don't know. As Nicole says, vocal rest and hydration. The second this is over, Nicole, I guarantee. I got my hydration at least.
Yeah.
One thing I have noticed is that they've talked about the tragic majesty and the kind of the deep darkness of House of the Dragon. I haven't heard much about like the lighter side of the humor. I do think the humor was very important to Game of Thrones. About like the tones were good. They could have like a wide variety of deadly serious to almost slapstick. I hope it doesn't.
Yeah, I agree.
I hope it remembers to have a little bit of dark fun. I think you almost have to have a little bit of dark fun when the material is this bleak. Like people will find humor in absolutely everything, and they almost find more humor when the situation is absolutely dire. And I do hope that Ryan Condal has a funny bone somewhere.
Yeah, me too. I totally agree. I think that's really important. He has fallen out. I think rightfully so, given everything that has come out about him. But there's a Joss Whedon quote that I always think about with that, which was in relation to Buffy. It was like, make it dark, make it heavy, but for the love of God, tell a joke. And I think like that kind of thing fits in the Game of Thrones. Like George always, he does that. Like his stories are all very dark, but he still makes the time to tell lots of jokes and have humor. I mean, that's Tyrion. It's interesting here because there isn't necessarily an obvious Tyrion or an obvious like witty character.
It's true.
So I'm curious to see who kind of takes up that role in this show, since it's not, we don't see the personalities quite as much in Fire and Blood.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, it's going to be on them, and I hope they step up.
Yeah.
I also like that Joss Whedon quote, but we're not allowed to talk about it anymore, Daniel. Not since
it's
the
true.
fall. So
that's fine. It is not a quote to redeem him. I am not Camp Joss. I'm just saying it's a fair quote for this situation.
All right.
He did give George. So George R.R. Martin also gave us a very, very the barest update about the Winds of Winter, the long awaited 6th book in A Song of Ice and Fire.
What did he say?
He said, I will try to do the voice. He said, finally finished a clutch of Cersei chapters that were giving me fits. Now I am wrestling with Jaime and Brienne. The work proceeds, though is not as fast as many of you would like.
I loved it. Thank you.
We tried. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. It always makes me happy whenever he feels comfortable enough to talk about the Winds of Winter, because he used to say stuff like this way more when he was writing A Dance with Dragons, and then the dog pile of kind of the internet and opinions have made him a little more reclusive with his updates. So what are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, it's just
glad
nice
George is talking about it.
Again, it's honestly, I thought it was a very good voice. When I get better, we can have a voice off about it, and you guys can decide who does the better JRM voice. It's nice to hear him mention actual names and specifics, but I mean, trying to read into what it portends, I think it's a bit of a fool's errand.
Yeah.
But yes, it's nice
Totally
to
agree.
hear specifics. And I like Julie's comment about like she enjoys Time Traveler's Wife because the touch of humor really lifts it. I almost think you
Ah.
shouldn't write something really serious unless you're prepared to have a few jokes in there. Again, that quote by Britney Spears or whoever that was really accurate about being
Yeah.
very serious but writing it but throwing a joke in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course I'm happy to hear him talking about it. I just we'll see if during any of this giant battery of appearances coming up, we get something more substantial. We all know what we
Yeah.
want to hear, and we're just waiting for it.
Yeah, there's nothing really you can get from, you know, I'm working on this character. Unless he drops you know, an unexpected character in there. It's like, well, we
Sure.
knew we were gonna see more Jamie and Brienne and Cersei.
Ooh.
It's not the same as like there was one years back where he was like, I'm working on Aaron Damphair chapters. And it's like,
Ooh.
Oh, okay. What tell us more about that.
If he adds any
you know.
characters, if there's anybody new in this book, that's gonna be a no for me, dog. That's gonna be probably not the best idea. When I read that, I actually forgot for a second that we already knew that Brienne lived and she talked to Jimmy at the end of Dance with Dragons. I was like, oh, Brienne, that's it, because we don't know if she lived no, wait, yeah, we did. She did survive that, and okay, never mind.
Yeah,
but then again, it has been 11 years, so of course I forgot something.
Yeah, and I think there's been one other time in those 11 years where he mentioned, I'm working on Jamie and Brienne. So full circle, he's now back working on Jamie and Brienne. We can only parse, you know, basically nothing from that. But again, glad he's comfortable enough to at least drop, you know, two or three sentences of Winds of Winter update for us.
As Julie says, the thing that bothers me the most is when we will get the final book of Dream of Spring. And my line on that now is, we'll get the Winds of Winter a couple of years. I don't think we'll ever get a Dream of Spring. But, you know, we'll see you here another 11 years, Julie, and see where we are.
I've got the diplomatic, the answer for you, Julie. You ready for it? We will get a Dream of Spring after the Winds of Winter. That's
you're going to say, when the mountains dry in the wind like leaves, and mountains float in the wind like leaves, and that whole spiel, which I forgot the rest of it. Okay.
Yeah, I wish I remembered that whole there was a really funny Reddit thread about this, about Cyber Martin finishing it, and you know, there are no more books, there are no more people, but the book is finished. And that was pretty funny. You can find that on Reddit somewhere. I think we paraphrased it on the site. But we'll see. I mean, that is like let's be real here, because he I think in one of these other recent updates he talked about how after Winds he's got Fire and Blood 2, he's got more Duncan Eggs, which he said he wants to write like a dozen Duncan Egg stories. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think he is going to write more of them than we've gotten, which is only 3.
Sure.
A dream of, like, you know, I don't ever want to stereotype, but like a Dream of Spring with where he is in his age and his career, that's going to be like the book he finished, like that's going to be the pinnacle of his life book as he's trying to work on it. Like he's going to be in his sunset years, but that is going to be the, like, if he finishes that book, that will be the mission of his life accomplished, kind of is what it feels like. So I'm not banking on that to be a quick thing, but I'm the eternal optimist. I'll hope for it.
Which is good. That's good, because I'm kind of a pessimist. So it's probably for the best that we have a little bit thing going on. All right. Yeah. Moving beyond that,
sure.
Let's move on to another place where it's possible I'll have some pessimistic, but often not. Let's talk about the new Disney show, Ms. Marvel. So, although some comments are popping up, Nicole says, I just hopped on. Did you all just say J.R.R. Winds of Winter didn't? No, Nicole.
Oh, Nicole.
No, we most certainly did not.
Sorry, Nicole.
That you're hearing what you want to hear, as we all are. No way. But you'll know when we know.
That would be the largest update, that instead of the barest update, the largest update if it was finished. But
yeah. So let's move on to a new Disney Plus Marvel TV show called Ms. Marvel. Did you end up watching this at any time today, Daniel? Not getting around to it yet, or at all?
I haven't gotten to see it yet. I had to prioritize Obi-Wan Kenobi, which also
Of
dropped
course.
today. Disney's
Yes.
they're not making it easy on us reviewers to watch all the things on the day of. But yeah, so I haven't seen it. I'm really curious what you thought of this one.
Lovely. Yeah. So this show is again, they're starting to kind of bleed together because there's so many of them now. The latest
Yeah.
Disney Plus Marvel show after WandaVision and Loki and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Hawkeye and Moon Knight and What If and probably another one. Ms. Marvel. She is Kamala Khan. She's a young Pakistani girl living in Jersey City, where my brother also lives, coincidentally. Maybe he's in it.
Nice.
And it was quite charming. I liked the trailer because it did look like it was going to be a down to earth kind of shrunken size, quirky show with a point of view. Kamala is kind of like a scatterbrained teenager who doesn't know what she wants and is obsessed with the Avengers. And they do a good job of selling the sort of plucky innocence and can-do attitude of this character in the show. And I'll tell you what, I was editing Ariba's review because Ariba Buvad reviews this show for WiC, and I was actually tearing up as I edited it because Ariba was
nice.
I'm not kidding, because Ariba, if you're out there,
Yeah.
your view made me cry because she was writing about how she was a young Pakistani girl at some point, and she said like how accurate the family scenes were. Like, Kamala's parents are, or at least her mother is very kind of like strict and doesn't want her to go out at night with boys or parties. She wants her to focus on her studies. She thinks the Avengers obsession is a little silly and girlish, wants her to get married and just kind of be an upright lady. And those were the best scenes where she's interacting with the mother. I mean, like the headstrong, plucky kid and the kind of strict parent is pretty traditional. Sure. I guarantee you've seen this scene before where Kamala's like, can I go to this party? And the mom's like, you can't. No. Like, it's not like it hasn't happened. But it's always effective because there are a lot of parents and kids like that. And of course you want Kamala to find a way to do it anyway. She finds a way to go to it, and it's fun, it's good. Now, so I was very happy to like read that it's connecting on that level and that she's seen herself in that, and that made me feel really good. Now, the plot of the actual plot has some Disney stank on it in an interesting good bad way. So the whole plot is that Kamala Khan loves the Avengers, specifically Captain Marvel. She wants to go to Avengers Con in Jersey City or New York. And that's the whole thing. That she reads fanfic, she does fan art, she has all the merch, she makes her own Captain Marvel cosplay. And I just couldn't help but think Disney has just found a way to work merch and Marvel cons into this story in a really seamless way, and like comment on or sort of like depict its own, like she's a Marvel fan. Like the main character is a Marvel super fan, and she's bought in all the Marvel merch and bought into the whole Marvel Disney lifestyle. And like that's her goal. Like that's the goal we support her in, is going to the place so she can buy t-shirts and mugs and Funkos. And they're not like by that name, but like the con like looks very, I was wondering, like, will they make the con, they wouldn't allow them to make the con look lame, because they have to make the con look good because they want their own cons to be attended.
Of course.
So that part was interesting. That was like kind of metatextual, but they didn't treat it as metatextual. Like The Boys is metatextual, where they're aware that they're kind of satirizing this. I think this was more closer to propaganda than satire. But I mean, again, it's still it still worked because I mean there are folk out there who are very big fans of this stuff. So why can't Kamala Khan be a fan? And I think she is in the comics too. So
She is, yeah.
that aspect was interesting to me, and it was good. Like, she puts on a bracelet she got from her grandmother, whatever. Now she has powers. We don't know where that's going yet. And
Yeah.
she gets powers and it's fun. And now I'm sure the episode kind of ends. It felt like a TV episode where it ended on like what'll happen next, which is nice. So I liked
Yeah.
it. It was charming. It was well acted. The actress who's playing Kamala Khan is it's like a newcomer to the screen. Very, very endearing, very, very likable. And it's also a really nice propaganda tool for Disney to just literally work
Yeah.
in all this merch stuff, which I just thought was an interesting little layer on top. But I liked it. I enjoyed it. Up to the next one. How
Cool.
how long is
Yeah.
your opinion gonna be? Because I might run and get some more water. It's important to stay hydrated when your voice is dying.
You
You know what? I'll wait
I
until like
hear
the
that.
boys or Obi-Wan.
You sure? You sure? So okay. So I
Yeah.
have some thoughts about the Miss Marvel thing. I think it is really so. As you said, she is a fan in the comics of Captain Marvel. That's kind of her origin thing. That's why she's Miss Marvel instead of some other superhero name.
Right.
I think so. The cultural representation. I remember seeing Ariba talk about this when we got like the first trailer, and that is the thing that I feel the best about in terms of a show like this. That it feels the most like the most important thing about a show like this is giving people from different communities a chance to see themselves in these superhero stories and depicting different cultures well. I think the Marvel superfan thing is it's a fascinatingly meta thing because this is basically centering a Marvel superfan as the hero of the story. And like the con thing, like you said, like that feels a little like a propaganda thing. Like it's kind of hilarious to me that Marvel's most meta series is premiering at the same time as The Boys, which is totally like ragging on all these exact same things. So that's fascinating. I think it's going to be really fun to watch both of them at once and kind of like pick apart the different approaches of the two creative teams. But it's also very meta that the actor who plays Kamala, Iman Vellani, I believe her name is. So she talked a little while back about how she is a huge Marvel super fan. So there's a very meta aspect to this where she's an enormous Marvel super fan playing an enormous Marvel super fan who gets Marvel powers, and she is a young actor who is a huge Marvel super fan joining the MCU. They told her she had to cut back. She wanted more Iron Man references. Apparently she loves Iron Man. And they had to curb that a little bit and be like, we need to chill on the references to other heroes. Like you really like Miss Marvel. You can't like Iron Man and Miss Marvel quite as much. But yeah, I mean, what did you think of the tone of this? Because one thing I was curious about from the trailers was it reminded me a little bit of Spider-Man Homecoming in that it seemed like it was aimed at a younger audience, which isn't bad, obviously, but it is a certain kind of demographic that's like, it's different than like Moon Knight, even though it was goofy and it kind of felt like it didn't know whether it wanted to be aimed at older or younger audiences. This from the trailers felt like it knew what it was about a little bit more. Did it come off as a slightly younger feeling show than some of the other ones?
I mean, yeah, of course, right? Because it's about younger people. It's about in high school.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, you see the trailers, and it has like all like stylistic things where she has like, she like sees in different kind of watercolors and comic strips come to life.
Ooh,
and like
that's cool.
They're like texting with her friend, and you see like the emojis they're sending just like appear in like windows and on signs, which honestly I thought was a bit much. It's like, I'm not sure this is really helping.
Yeah.
I feel like you're giving the visual designer something to do. I don't know if it really helped you. You know what it reminded me of, weirdly, stylistically, the kind of sideways steps into Kamala Khan's kind of quirky point of view, which is all bright colors and comics reminded me of the movie Precious, based on a novel Pushed by Sapphire, which
Oh,
is a movie. Do you ever
okay.
see that? Which is about
I've not seen that.
Gabrielle Sidibe, like a poor young black woman who just retreats into her fantasy life because her life is horrible.
Huh.
In that movie, the point is you see her fantasy life because her normal life is wretched. And this life is just kind of
Yeah.
like a fun flourish, but it was actually kind of similar,
Gotcha.
but a very, very different intention. But yeah, I mean, of course, it's younger, because she's younger, and her best
Yeah.
friend, who she will obviously be in a relationship with, is younger, and the girl she's like at school is younger, and she has a hugely optimistic, let's go get him, rah rah attitude about her powers, and she's not a mopey
Gotcha.
hero. She's not a Batman. She's the
Yeah.
opposite of Batman. She's Superman, but
Yeah.
like young and bubbly and likes fan art. And she has a podcast. Honest to God, like the first
Oh,
bit
nice.
is like her doing a podcast. It sounded a lot like us. And and the show, like her YouTube channel's got like 5 views, 6 views, 3 views. It was cute. So
Nice.
this is the most meta series that Disney has made in a weird way.
Yeah.
They are definitely looking at their fans and kind of commenting on some stuff they do, but not trying to make it too much. Although I am curious, and I think it's my water break. You mentioned The Boys.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting point of comparison, actually, to Miss Marvel, because they do share some things, but just on very different levels. Now that you've seen the first episodes of The Boys, Dan, the Amazon Prime Video superhero drama that satirizes all things Marvel, what did you think of those first 3 episodes? And while you say that, I'm gonna get some more water, so maybe by Friday my throat can be a little better. 1 second.
All right. So The Boys, the first 3 episodes of The Boys on Amazon Prime dropped on Friday. And yeah, it is The Boys has always been a very meta show. It likes to poke fun at these kinds of cultural trends. There was a part in the second season of The Boys where they had like a girls get it done better like subplot, which was a direct commentary on a specific part of Avengers Endgame. And this season of The Boys has plenty of that same kind of stuff. The characters go to Votland at one point, which is basically The Boys equivalent of Disneyland. I was just talking about Votland. They go there, talking about these meta types of things with The Boys. So yeah, in terms of the actual plot and like how the season's holding up, The Boys has always been a pretty good show. I have now seen the incredibly gross scene that you were referring to when we did our spoiler-free talk about this last week, and it was righteously it was intense. The person I was watching it with left the room during that scene. They had already seen it once. They didn't want to see it again. But like beyond that, like The Boys is always going to be shocking. It's always going to have gore that makes you cover your mouth and go, oh my God, I can't believe they just did that. But I think it's handling like the traumas of the different characters really, really well this season. It's using, and that's beyond just the actor. The actors are all doing a great job, but I think also with the way the editing team and the sound design team are working on this season, like there are lots of fast cuts or moments where the sound kind of blurs out, or the scene cuts in the middle of a song. Moments to drive home how messed up these situations are for the people like Starlight and Huey and Billy Butcher, who've all been through so much messed up stuff at this point in the show. I feel so bad for Starlight. Now by the end of the 3rd episode, she how much into spoilers do we want to get here? The home light thing.
It's been out for like 5 days by now.
Okay. Yeah, I see a couple of people saying they've watched all of them in the comments. Nicole's seen them. Nicole's seen them. We're safe to talk about it.
Julie,
there's a home light thing. Yeah, well, definitely that.
Feel the difference.
Yes, I felt so bad for Starlight and being in the situation she's in with Homelander and with the Deep. It's kind of like she started
Oh,
the season in
God.
a really powerful place and then got the rug pulled out from under her, which is similar to Huey. They've kind of been on parallel paths throughout this entire show, really, where he's with the boys and she's with Vought, and they're both kind of on the rise in these two organizations and then finding different footings. And they both started on top of the world this season, and now they're not. I thought the twist with I'm glad they didn't draw out the twist with Huey's boss. Um,
Yeah.
okay, Joanne has not seen 3 yet. We won't get into
Okay.
the deets too much, but we knew from last season
Or
that
question.
Huey's boss, the politician, I don't remember her name.
Victoria Newman, I think.
Yeah, we knew that Victoria was a soup from the end of last season. She's the one who makes people's heads explode. She sabotaged a few important moments throughout season 2. And thankfully, Huey finds this out pretty early on. It becomes a point of, it becomes a plot point pretty early on this season, which I was glad for.
But thanks the end of the first
it's always
episode.
a weird thing. Yeah, it's always a weird thing when a show tells the audience something and then draws it out. That was kind of my issue with the Stranger Things Hopper plot line. Like, we saw a Demogorgon in the end credits of season 3. So then to have that be the reveal of episode 7 is like, well, this is something we knew already. There's got to be a really good reason for it.
When I heard that Obi-Wan started and he didn't realize that Darth Vader was Anakin. I was like, he has to figure that out. We've known that for decades.
Yeah. And thankfully, and again, this is another instance where they maybe someone in Disney's marketing team realized that, because they made that the end of the episode 2, which means that you could have found that out on the first day of watching. You can basically get to that point where Obi-Wan discovers that Anakin is Darth Vader, or not that he knew that Anakin was Darth Vader. He does not realize that Darth Vader is still alive. Because we saw the name drop in Revenge of the Sith. He sees a holo of Palpatine calling him Darth Vader, if I remember right. But we don't ever see the actual like metallic robot-y Darth Vader on the loose, or Obi-Wan hasn't until that series. So yeah, The Boys, I think the writing and the plotting is really tight and really good. I like how it is pulling on some strings with the relationships between some of the characters, like Butcher and his old boss.
I've
kind of discovering that there's some secrets there. Giving characters like Mother's Milk some more detailed backstory. Yeah, I'm really excited to see how that plays out. I'm surprised. You and I were talking about this a little earlier. I'm surprised at how much of a long game reveal it seems like they're making the fact that this is a spoiler, but it's not, because it's in the trailers. So they're playing with this idea of what happened to Soldier Boy is a big focus of the first few episodes, and they all think Soldier Boy's dead. And we've seen him quite a bit in the trailers, and there's been quite a lot they really pushed him hard in the marketing, and like how he reacts to seeing the modern world. So that's interesting to me, because on the one hand, it's like, that's cool. I like that they, I was fascinated by that. On the other hand, it's always weird with stuff like that, because it's like, how much better would all this have landed if you didn't make it such public knowledge before the season aired?
I agree.
That's always kind of my question with some of these like plot points being revealed. But either way, I mean, Jensen Ackles in again, we won't get into episode 3 spoilers too much, because now we know there are people in the audience who haven't seen it. But there was only maybe 1 or 2 scenes where we've really gotten a good look at him as Soldier Boy so far, and it was enough to get me really excited. It seemed like he had some similar like facial tics and attitude things that reminded me of Homelander a little bit. And so I can't wait to see what that actor does with a role like that, because I think he's a good actor.
He does feel very Homelander like. I also liked Stormfront being back in her state. Also,
Oh my god. Yeah,
I-
that surprised me. I figured she was
Oh, yeah.
she was dead after last season.
The actress straight up lied.
Yeah,
That was good. Yeah.
she did.
Actress
She
like,
did.
yeah, I'm not in it. If I'm
Kudos
in
her.
it, I
She
haven't
fooled
heard.
us.
She did. That was funny. And then she killed it.
Yeah.
Also, okay, a comment from Julie suggests a question. Julie says, I want to smack
Okay.
Homelander in the mouth. And Joanne replies, I hear you. Okay, Daniel and everyone out there listening, I want your opinions on this. So when it comes to a character like Homelander, I think I should call him my absolute favorite from the show because he is by far the character I'm most compelled by and the one who whenever's on screen, I'm like, I want to know what he does. But there's this tension, right? Like with a character like that, where they're the most loathsome piece of trash in the world. But I mean, he's the reason the show like goes round. Like he's the reason the show is good to me. So does that make him a good character or a bad character, a likable character or an unlikable character? He's unlikable because he's terrible, but he's likable because he's really interesting. And whenever he's in a scene, I set up straight to attention. I love Homelander, but I hate Homelander. It's a bit of a thicket. I fall out because I've heard people who will look at a character like that and say like, "Ugh, he's the worst." And I'm like, he does the worst things, but he's the best. Like he is the reason for the freaking season. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with you. I think he is, he epitomizes that kind of classic trope of being a character you love to hate because he is so compelling. And he constantly does things that he knows will really mess with other characters. So it is fast. Like anytime there's a development where he's involved, it's so fast and like that. It reminds me of Joffrey Baratheon,
yes, it does,
or Ramsay Bolton, or Cersei. Cersei to a lesser extent because she became a lot more sympathetic as the show and the books go on. Like even though she's still awful, it's not quite the same as Joffrey, where like the psychological, like they're just irredeemable, but you still can't look away when they're around. Right. I think Homeland, I mean, he is that for the boys. And they're not to say there aren't too many characters like that, but like thinking right now, like he's a standout, like in terms of things the show could be known for, like as a really psychotic villain.
He's unquestionably the breakout character from the show.
I think him and Billy Butcher, who he's like the humor, like he's the other character where every single time he was on screen, I sit up straighter, I pay more attention. His lines are always so funny, and part of that is the line, and a huge part of that is Carl Urban's delivery. I'm so glad that chronically underrated Carl Urban, because he's always good in everything he's in.
He's always good.
But now he's finally got a role where he can really showcase that. They're the two. They're the two for me.
Actually, I don't know. I have some problems with Butcher. Not problems, I just
okay.
I almost think it's overdone. Like just most of the characters are rooted in like actually there are a whole lot that kind of have like a gimmick. Like there's the French guy, and I guess that's the only other one. I don't know. Okay, first of all, he's Australian, right? Butcher. He's coming in there with the Australian accent, like the really heavy. I don't buy it.
Is he supposed to be Australian in the show? So he's a New Zealander in actual life.
Yeah.
But I can't remember where he's supposed to be from in the show.
He has that accent. It's just so extreme and like so kind of cosplay tough guy. He's British. He's British in the show. It's like so sort of like, yeah, that's it. It's like cosplay kind of tough guy drag. Like everything he says is a growled one-liner. I for some reason, Nicole, thank you, Nicole. I feel like Butcher is trying too hard.
That's fair.
And weird because Homelander, I believe, like, okay, sure, he's a little superhero, but I feel like Butcher is like one level of campiness higher than everyone else is playing. He's like up here and everyone else is kind of here.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I mean, I think you're right about that, and part of it is I'm biased because I do like Carl Urban.
I like Carl Urban
And
too.
yeah, I think I could see that, but I don't enjoy him any less for it. I can
Sure.
respect the opinion that he maybe feels a little less grounded, and that's true for the stuff he's struggling with this season because he's kind of struggling with what is he willing to do to himself in order to fight Soups
Y'all.
this season. That's kind of his struggle, and it is a more fantastical struggle than almost any other character is facing, which is weird because like half the cast are Soups, and but it's weird though because the Soups are dealing with actual person problems, right? Like Homelander's dealing with being a psycho. The Deep basically got into Scientology and then got out. The self-referentialness of the boys it's fascinating because they filmed it a year ago, but seeing like the firearm convention that Butcher goes to, and
some of these things are cyclical,
Deep,
right? Just it's not gonna stop.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, did you know it was gonna be so timely? Like these tragic things have been happening recently, and it's like they were happening a year ago when the boys filmed. It was just as relevant then.
I'm gonna quote The Simpsons.
Yeah,
that old joke where it's they're gonna replace the DJs with the automatic kind of computer voice track, and he says, "The clowns in Congress have done it again." And it's like, how's how the news like that?
Yeah. So I mean, I think the boys is really it's doing a good job this season. I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm really excited to see what they do. They've kind of set up this conflict with Butcher and Homelander, which has always kind of been at the center of the show.
Sure.
They have a pretty great scene in the first episode where Homelander basically asks, wouldn't you rather us just duke this out scorched earth style and we'll see who's left? And Butcher's like, yeah, you're right. That is what I want. Oh, I see Scruffy on the loose.
There he is.
I hope something like that happens. I hope it doesn't happen quite that obviously, like don't totally give us what we want, like surprise us, but I am hoping for an eventual showdown with those two characters.
I'm looking forward to it in general. I have more screeners. I'm gonna start watching some more tonight. And
Nice.
Finally, Daniel, before we move on to a lightning round, how's Obi-Wan treating you?
It's treating me well. I want to just address one quick comment before we get to that Christian pointed out, which was that Carl Urban said he wouldn't do Wolverine. He respects that. I agree. His reasoning was he's like 5 years younger than Hugh Jackman. Why would anyone recast Hugh Jackman as him as Wolverine? Like they're the same age basically. But yeah, so Obi-Wan Kenobi episode 4 came out today. And it was really good. I think so. My feelings were the first 2 episodes were pretty bland. They had some writing things I thought were weird and inconsistent. I just wasn't really gripped. Thankfully, this episode did not have chase scenes for the actor who plays young Leia. She's great. But the first 2 episodes had people chasing her a lot and they just looked ridiculous. They weren't good chase scenes. So we got away from that this episode. She had some great stuff where her voicing sometimes still feels like a little too adult to me. Like she's supposed to be like 9 years old, 10 years old. Like she talks like an adult.
Okay. Like the time, what she says,
the words she's saying, what she says. And part of that's like she's raised in a diplomat family, her father's a senator, she has education, all that stuff. But it still feels like there are times where I have to suspend my disbelief a little bit. But the flip side of that is she totally sounds like a young Princess Leia. Like the phrasing, like there's one hilarious line where she's being interrogated this episode. Someone's trying to probe her mind with the Force, and she's just like, "Are we having a staring contest?" So there are things like that where it's that's such a Leia line. Obi-Wan, my biggest beef with the online discourse around this show is I've seen a lot of people, particularly bros, who are complaining that Obi-Wan is too weak in this show. And that's really bugs me because that's the whole point. That's the point of the show, is we're catching up with him at his lowest point in his life. Like, he was a Jedi when we first met him in the Phantom Menace. He was in his 20s then. Now he's like a 50-year-old man. He's lost everything that he cared about. He lost a war that ended up resulting in the death of basically every single person he cared about for the most part. And yeah, he buried his lightsaber in the desert. He clearly hasn't been using the Force. The show has made that clear, because I've seen criticisms of like, why didn't he use the Force last episode? But like, this one really addresses that. It makes it very clear he hasn't been like at his desert house in Tatooine floating around teacups and stuff. Like, he hasn't been using it, and that is where he's at.
Right.
This episode felt like him coming back into his own a bit more. It's impressive to me how well they did the progression of that in one episode, because at the start he's struggling to move like a thing across the table, and by the end he's, you know, when he doesn't have time to doubt himself, he uses his old abilities much more fluently, to a degree where it's like it even surprises him a little bit. Like, that's the point of his arc this season, is him regaining his skills and regaining the will to fight. And if you start him as strong Obi-Wan Kenobi that he's always been, there's nowhere to go there. That's not compelling to see a strong character just realize, hey, I'm still strong.
Yeah.
But having a character who's lost everything be like, there are reasons for me to still get up, even though by all rights I should just lie down and die in a cave and no one would blame me for it after what I've been through. That's just way more compelling.
I agree. I have a comment on that, but let's read some comments first.
Sure.
Christian agrees with you. He does seem extra weak, but I guess that's the idea. That's why it isn't jumping around doing backflips in the Death Star at episode 4, which
yeah.
Alden Julie says, Julie watching Fear the Walking Dead with Madison is back. I have heard that Madison is back, and loving time travel with his wife. Gentleman Job was a bit better this week as well. I want to say quickly about there is a contingent of fans, I think, who do seem to, mostly bros, who do seem to watch shows like this to get a power fantasy thing. Because I recall a lot of folk complaining about that during Game of Thrones too. Like, how could anyone, how could a team of 18 people beat Barest and Selmy? Or like, you know, no one can beat Jon Snow. He can take on 500 people. It's like they're just people. Just like I feel like there's a certain like kind of niche of criticism, but they weren't strong enough criticism, which seems like it's from an interesting place, because people aren't invincible, and I don't watch shows to watch invincible people. Homelander's invincible, but I wish he wasn't. And I agree with you, and I just want to note that so we can categorize it for when that crops up again at some point.
Which we know it will, because it has time and again. I very much agree with that. It's ironic, especially with something like Game of Thrones. Like, Jon Snow should beat 500 people, because George R.R. Martin was very clear when he was writing those books about that. He doesn't like that. He wanted to write stories where if 4 people came at you with knives, you were in trouble.
I don't care how
like,
skilled
that's a
you are.
specific
In real
thing
life,
he said.
You are the best sword fighter in history. If there are 5 guys with a sword, you're probably gonna die. Just like one person cannot fight many people.
And that has been a point. I feel like in a lot of grim dark or darker fantasy or science fiction stories, they'll usually play with that idea, right? Like the heroic, seemingly invincible person who died because of bad luck, or because they were drunk in an alley at the wrong time, or because their cape got caught on a revolving door and they choked.
Watchmen, good times,
Watchmen. So one thing I will say, Julie says Jon Snow and Uhtred. Uhtred's the exception to this. He actually is invincible, and we can't fault him for it because he's Uhtred. One thing that has
I can't do
been
it.
that I think Obi-Wan Kenobi deserves a lot of credit for. So in the original Star Wars trilogy, this relates to what Christian said about that's why Obi-Wan isn't doing backflips in the landing bay of the Death Star in Episode 4. So the lightsaber duels in the original trilogy were real clunky, and like they were, when you watch the prequel trilogy, they're acrobatic. They're like, the choreography is incredible for most of them, and then you get to the original movies and it feels much more like people batting at each other with baseball bats. Like there's not that same level of articulate skill, I guess, with the lightsabers. And I always just chalk that up. Yeah, I chalk that up to George Lucas figured out what he wanted to do with lightsaber duels more. This show, I think, is doing a really commendable job of bridging the styles between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy.
That's cool.
So like you see Obi-Wan and Vader fight in Episode 3, and their fight feels like a good precursor to their eventual showdown in Episode 4 of the movies, A New Hope, because here are two people who have been through hell. One is old and defeated. One has basically been burned almost to death and then reconstructed. Of course, they're not going to be acrobatic. Yeah, of course, they're not going to be doing backflips. Of course, their fights aren't going to be like they were in Revenge of the Sith, when both of them were at the pinnacle of their strength. Right. I think the show has done it really. That is one thing I didn't predict in this show, that I think they're really doing a good job of doing that intentionally. Instead of just here are people fighting with lightsabers, it's going to look cool. They're telling a story with the lightsaber duels, and I like that a lot
too. That is a good recommendation for someone like me who's not checked it out yet, because I'm watching Ms. Marvel and I'm watching other stuff, so we'll see. But I like the idea a lot.
There's so much television right now. This is the summer of television.
It's not stopping. We'll talk about it a little more right this second. Shall we move on to the lightning round? And then I can go back to not talking for the next 48 hours. All right.
Yes.
Oh.
All right. So,
Daniel,
Dan, I think I'm going to ask you this first one. Yeah. All right. So the Wire creator doesn't think HBO would make The Wire after Game of Thrones. Doesn't think this network that made Game of Thrones would greenlight a show like The Wire nowadays. What do you think of that?
His basic argument was that everything that'll be huge now is going to be like Game of Thrones, big enough, and The Wire was like a more small scale show. Now, I mean, I put it on there because I guess I just like the irony of the guy saying that while he's promoting a show called We Own This City, which is about a cop in Baltimore, like The Wire, with a small cast, like a drug bust gone wrong. So obviously they still do it. That's really it. I just think that's funny. I just think that he's complaining about it. He's literally talking about it. They do still do that. They do this stuff too. Well,
it's pretty ironic.
Well, under. All right.
Beat that buzzer so hard, there's not even a buzzer.
Okay, Daniel, this one hurts for you. Maybe. Actually, I don't really know.
It does. It moderately hurts.
HBO Max has canceled Raised by Wolves.
Yeah, the biggest, boldest, weirdest sci-fi show that was airing at the moment. No more can I rant about what Snake Baby's up to this week. It sucks because it was on a big cliffhanger. The second season was a total cliffhanger, and now it will just never get resolved. It was a good show, but it was a weird show and it didn't catch on. So I wasn't surprised by this news, unfortunately. No. Though I wish it were different.
Cool. I'm being told the buzzer might be a little broken, at least for us.
We are too mighty for the buzzer this week.
You'll all keep us honest. Yes. All right, hit me.
All right. We got I think maybe our first real behind the scenes look at Netflix's One Piece series. This is a picture from their set in South Africa. You a fan of One Piece, Dan?
I'm not. And look, I never watched One Piece. I don't think you watched One Piece. I would doubt that any of you have seen One Piece, but One Piece is one of the most successful manga shows in the history of the world. It's an animated pirate
Yes,
series. It is huge, and they're making a live action version of it. I've never seen it. They're putting all the money into it. Netflix just can't stop making these giant odes to grandness, and I just we heard the. I'm having a good time.
That should just be our buzzer from now on. That what just happened.
By the way, some quick comments.
Yeah.
Which some good ones in between here. Christian asked, why can't HBO make the Dark Tower series? It's written, they can't go past the material. I knew that AMC was making a Dark Tower series, but I believe it got canceled. Maybe someone else pick it up. And as Henrique says, I think he means a multi-season series like The Wire. We're going to see just 6 episodes. I mean, it is, but it doesn't have to be. Like they are making a lot of limited series now, but if they're willing to make one 6-episode thing sight unseen, usually things grow their audiences in the second season. I don't see why they wouldn't commit to make more of that if they were interested. I think they got good at a few ones too. Okay. I
think you had a good point. You had a good point about this too in your write-up of that. That's HBO has always had a balance of big shows and small kitschier shows, or like Sex and the City was a huge hit for HBO before The Wire happened. Like they've always had a balance of those kinds of shows. So I don't totally get behind that reasoning. I think The Wire would, if it was good, it would still get greenlit today, I think.
All right. Whose turn is it to go? I forgot.
It's mine. It's mine. Read me this one.
Okay, great. Daniel, James Marsden is returning for Westworld season 4. And Evan Rachel Wood, whose character Dolores died in season 3, will play a new character. What's up with that?
Yeah. So I'm glad James Marsden's coming back. I felt his absence last season. He's great. Evan Rachel Wood, I mean, she's the face of the show. It's tricky because Westworld, you can have characters play different characters. That happened to Tessa Thompson last season. She was not the same character. She was in fact a clone. I'm excited. I'm excited for Westworld. All right. Dan, What We Do in the Shadows was renewed not just for season 5, but for seasons 5 and 6. Good choice.
Yeah. Well, What We Do in the Shadows, funny vampire comedy. Season 4 is coming out in the near future. Renewed by FX on Hulu. Good choice. They're kind of it is kind of funny because the 3rd season I thought was the weakest, but now they know they have a bit of a hit on their hands. So yeah, why not? It was still fun. It's still good. I love the style. I like the actors. It's pretty funny. Rock on. Okay.
Yeah.
You keep writing about this, so I want to get your opinion on this. I wanted to put this out to you. Peacock is making a series based on the car combat video game Twisted Metal, and funny man Will Arnett will play Sweet Tooth, who is a clown who drives an ice cream truck, and he's a murderer.
Yep. Every time there's casting news for this show, I'm like, this sounds like it's going to be better than it has any right to be. So it's got Will Arnett, it's got Nev Campbell, Thomas Hayden Church, Anthony Mackie. I'm curious at this point. Like, I'm gonna watch this show, and by it, there's no reason it should be good, but it could be.
All right, when it comes out, I want to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I will have some. Okay, Dan, I want to hear your opinion about this one because I am not a fan of this. I know I should be. I know I probably
you just
would
have to be.
It's gonna happen at some point, but for now, I'm not. So tell us stuff. The Sandman got a release date. It's coming to Netflix on August 5th.
Honestly, it's awfully close. I wish it was a little later. There's already so much coming out. But Sandman, great. Neil Gaiman comic, wonderful, imaginative, revolutionary, seminal. I'm really looking forward to it. I didn't actually love the trailer. They end on like a weird line that I feel like was supposed to be dramatic, but I don't even know who the guy was. But I'm still put my hopes high. Let's do the Sandman. Finally, Daniel.
They did kind of sneak that in there with the release date. They were like, let's get this out before House of the Dragon.
Yeah, I wish it was later. A good autumn watch.
Me too.
But all right, and finally, Daniel, last item on the agenda. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, is Black Adam in the first trailer for the anti-hero superhero film Black Adam. You're gonna see Black Adam. You're gonna see The Rock. You smell The Rock is cooking and Black Adam.
I'm not excited for this movie, but I love The Rock. And I there have been many times in my life so far where I was like, I'm not excited for this movie, but it has The Rock. And then it ended up being great because of The Rock. So I will give this a chance. I think it could be fun. There's an SNL skit where he said he is like franchise Viagra. And I think that's true. If anyone can save DC, maybe it's him.
I'd love to break that down further, but I think we're out of time. This was fun. Thanks for talking a lot. And Nicole, I remember your comment. I will get plenty of vocal rest, and August is gonna be nuts. Vocal rest and hydration, and hopefully this time next week, I'll yell better, because we do this show every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, live here on the Winter is Coming Facebook page and the Winter is Coming YouTube page. We're also available in podcast form wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, Take the Black, the only show where the sicker the hosts are, the more fun they have. See you next week. Bye.
Take care, everyone.